was the one behind some of this stuff, or like the more extreme elements of it. But it appears to be Dick Cheney is one of the main architects of what's going on here. So, but let's let me start out with the book, since we haven't talked about it here a little bit. So at the beginning of chapter 3, which is which is entitled "Not All the News Is Fit to Print," where they're talking about the impact that politics and the power elite, and remember the Jon Stewart example, that this not only occurs when it comes to political information, this constriction or manipulation or deception or distortion, but this occurs with financial markets as well. And anything that makes ExxonMobil or one of these major corporations look really bad, unless it's a major disaster that can't be ignored, like the oil volcano in the Gulf of Mexico that BP was responsible for, But nowadays they're still lying about how safe it is. Give you another little example of how economic interests and political interests come together to alter how the public views information. Those of you who remember, and anybody who knows anybody in Lower Manhattan, you remember right after 9/11, the air was considered to be unbreathable. First of all, they didn't tell any of the rescue workers that, did they? And now these people are dropping dead left and right. There will probably be as many people who died from injuries at the site than have died in the Iraq War. I expect at least 4,000 or 5,000 casualties from the asbestos and God knows what else. There were 17,000 tons of asbestos in those buildings. Did the public know that, really? That's why that dust was all gray. Did you see that soot? The other thing was, people who lived in Lower Manhattan and Wall Street's down there were told not to go back down there because the air was unsafe. And then the EPA, Christine Todd Whitman, who was the head at the time, and I believe she was the former governor of New Jersey, something like that, and she went and told the public, she put out an official EPA report that said, absolutely safe to go down to Lower Manhattan. Was it? No. I mean, what kind of nonsense is going on? And here's the thing. Do you expect the government to lie? Who's supposed to stop the government or discover the lie? Yeah, the fourth estate, right? The one that's supposed to stand up like a guard dog and say no. Or at least, at the very minimum, can't you say, whoa, let's do an independent analysis of this? You know? I think especially since Watergate and Vietnam, but just in general, particularly your generation who didn't go through Vietnam and Watergate, I don't think a lot of people have a lot of trust in the government. The unfortunate thing is, if you don't have trust in your government, you need to have trust in the media. You need to know that what the media is saying is accurate. And people don't trust corporations. And again, who runs the media? It's corporations. So you really, here's a general question, and then I'll read this. As a news consumer, or as a consumer of information in a democracy, how do you feel about what the information you get? Martin? Then what do you do? That's for anybody. What do you do if the information you get is not what you need? What do most people do?
Nothing, really.
Turn off? Yeah. I mean, if you can't trust information, and also, the internet is like a cascade of information, right? You don't know if something's a blog, or a commentary, or some kook just put some crap up there, or you can't even trust CNN's site, because you don't know if they're trying to manipulate somebody, and try to hide something that Apple's doing, or they have a relationship with the government. Here's the other thing as well. Are some news commentators former politicians? You ever seen, doesn't Joe Scarborough have his own show? And Sarah Palin had a thing on Fox News. And all these, Elliot Spitzer, believe it or not, Elliot Spitzer had a show on CNN. I'm waiting for Clinton to have a show. It's called Cooking with Bill. Anyway. This is how you jog 4 miles and still gain weight. Anyway. On page 74, though. Actually, Clinton's looking a lot better lately. Of course, he had, I think it was double bypass or something, whatever, bypass surgery. Anyway, on the bottom here it says, in January 1998, New Line Pictures of Hollywood released a Barry Levinson movie with a moderately interesting plot. I think it was a little more than moderately interesting. A U.S. president is facing problems in his hopes for re-election. He calls it a noted political propagandist to cover up the presidential vulnerability. The spin doctor, played by Robert De Niro, has a bold idea. Divert public attention from the president's domestic problems by starting a war. The movie was called Wag the Dog. In real life, as midterm elections approached in September 2002, the Bush White House had mounting problems. The headlines meant troubles for the Republicans, who controlled the presidencies in both houses of Congress. They didn't control the Senate. But the Senate only barely within 2 votes. They didn't control the Senate. The Senate switched, this is absolutely wrong. Hey Ben, your facts are wrong here. Jim Jeffords switched his party affiliation. It was essentially 50-50. Okay, but with the vice president, it was a 51-50 margin. Anyway. National trends favored Democrats. Front pages of major papers and TV network news almost daily reported rising unemployment and more massive layoffs. The national economy was in trouble. The stock market was sinking. And new scandals of corporate fraud and theft, like Enron, for example, were reported day after day. So the news media, at least at this point in time, was... Remember we talked about token opposition. And also the idea that, look, if you're the news media, you have to give the public something. You can't just sit there, oh, the government's going great and corporations never do anything wrong. But they're very selective about who they attack and what they say. Right? Never will you hear newspapers blame unemployment on Walmart or poverty on Walmart. Nobody will ever talk about that. No one will ever talk about the ridiculous price for housing in the tri-state area as a reason why people are poor. You know? People could live on $8 or $9 an hour if rent was $400 a month, couldn't they? Or better, at least, right? I mean, you think about it. I mean, does anybody ever discuss, remember that one guy who ran for governor, the rent was too damn high? Does anybody ever discuss why this is the case? The fact is, around here, can somebody tell me why there are no big apartment complexes around here? And why the newspapers won't talk about this? Especially in Rockville Center. Why do you think there's no big apartment houses around here? Who lives around here? People who want to see apartment houses jump up around their neighborhood? Or wealthy upper middle class people who think that a low-income housing complex needs drugs and prostitutes and criminals and other undesirable people? Isn't that what they think? That's what they think in Suffolk County. You can't find an apartment in Suffolk County for under $1,400. And it's a piece of shit, too. And you heard me. Anyway. But again, think of all the things that they don't talk about. But again, also you have this element of token opposition, and also the news media loves sensational stories, right? They love like little cat and mouse arguments. That's why they love divorces with celebrities, right? Like the Kim Kardashian thing and stuff. Like I saw a report the other day. I was watching, it was a little clip feed into the news and when I was watching another show, and it said, tonight at 11, the Kardashian divorce gets ugly. I was like, wait, that's like, it already was ugly. What the hell are you talking about? You know, I mean, but that type of story, you know, what value does that have to society? They talk about Paris Hilton and stupid stuff. But when there is a recession, they'll focus on unemployment, but they won't say stuff like AIG's at fault. Or don't bail out the banks. Knowing that their companies would soon suffer losses or face fraud investigations, were further destabilizing the economy by dumping their own stocks at mammoth profits before warning other shareholders that their shares might be worthless, possibly by bankruptcy. Also as well, the newspapers were not, and neither were financial analysts, telling people that Enron was a fake company, essentially a false reality. Similar with the housing crisis. There were people in 2004 that were saying, you are creating a bubble, this is going to turn out ugly, it's going to be at least 10% unemployment, and God knows what else is going to happen. And they laughed them off. They're like, listen to this guy. That's why we love you on the show, you always provide the humor. Yeah. And then at the same time you had Jim Cramer going, it's time to bye-bye-bye. I know that it's irresponsible to buy things that are overpriced. I know that. But you should do it anyway. Is that the way the news media should be behaving? Keep buying houses. I know cigarettes are bad for you, but they taste real good. You look cool. Right? I mean, that's the type. Can you imagine if the news media came out and said stuff like that? I know that heroin seems addictive, but it's not that bad. It's fun, too. The news media would never get away with that. But they can get away with saying, hey, let's bail the banks out for $1.5 trillion. It's not that bad. It'll be cool. We'll have a big party afterwards and laugh about it. Come on. President Bush and Vice President Richard Cheney, he prefers to be called Dick. So did Richard Nixon. I'm not kidding you. Richard Nixon did not respond to the words Richard. And I love the fact that both these guys are like, that name, you couldn't pick the better name except for asshole. Had entered office, or convict would be a good one. Traitor, maybe is a good one. Anyway, had entered office just having just sold personal stocks in companies they controlled under circumstances similar enough to raise eyebrows. Bush at one point owned the Texas Rangers. The powerful Senate, by the way, and Sammy Sosa was using steroids when he was on his team. The powerful Senate Republican Majority Leader Trent Lott had to resign after revelations that he had delivered a racist, tainted speech and maintained racist membership in a Mississippi group. What a shock that there's racists in Mississippi. If Democrats took the Senate, there would be bruising queries into Republican embarrassments involving both the White House and the Congress. It came out later that one of the Republican representatives in 2006 was getting 12 and 13-year-old pages drunk and sending sexually suggestive pictures of himself to 12 and 13-year-old boys. I'm not kidding. I can't remember what his name was. You can look. If you're interested, I'll give you the information on it. I can't remember. I wish I knew his name off the top of my head. So, anybody's got their iPad, look up Republican sicko in 2006. It'll come right up. Look up child molester, Republican congressional child molester in 2006. It should come right up. I'm telling you. Go on Google. But it was not to be. After Labor Day, when serious election campaigns were building, President Bush, speaking in front of the Statue of Liberty, announced that he would go to war against Iraq and its dictator Saddam Hussein. Hussein, the president said, possessed weapons of mass destruction that created an imminent threat to the United States. When some dubious Democrats asked for details before going to war, President Bush accused them of unconcern for the security of their country. One of the things that was done was anybody who criticized, remember what's the fifth filter? And then we'll see about the congressional sicko. What's his name? Yeah. What did it say he did? I'm pretty sure he was texting pictures to people or suggesting things like that. So. All right, why are you still getting it? What's the fifth filter?
Pro-capitalism, pro-military as a religion?
And patriotism to some extent. So what was being accused of Democrats and other Republicans and news people who were criticizing the war in Iraq? That this wasn't a good thing.
That they were against the troops.
And they were unpatriotic. How dare you in this moment of need call into question our military's judgment? And anybody on this trail that challenged President Bush was unpatriotic. And they used it and battered it. What did they say? What did they say he did?
It said he sent sexually suggestive pictures, lingerie, emails, sexually explicit instant messages.
Was he straight?
Emails.
I don't know. I don't think it matters. I don't care if it's girls or boys that he's sending his stuff to. I don't think it really, to me, it doesn't change the reality of it. It's like Jerry Sandusky. If he was raping young girls, I would still want him to die. Okay? I want a public execution of that guy. I mean, my God. Some of those people that I know this is a little off topic, but some of those people that Jerry Sandusky raped, he did it over 100 times.
It says he was like an advocate, like an opponent for a child pornography.
Yeah, and Jerry Sandusky ran a charity for kids who were underprivileged, and he preyed on poor kids.
Yeah, that were like orphans.
Yeah, what a scum. Dude, there's the deepest, darkest place in hell ain't good enough for you. Okay? Or too good for you. My God, what kind of a sick person do you have to be? And worst of all, he says he's innocent. My gosh. And that guy resigned. Did he ever go to jail? Did Foley ever go to jail?
No, it just said he resigned.
What the hell? I mean, what Brett Favre did was bad enough, right? He's married, he sent a picture of his penis to some woman at the Jets.
At least it was a woman, wasn't it?
Yeah, and plus, still, Brett was married, and also, she said to him repeatedly, I'm not interested in you, dude. She actually texted him back and said, I don't do married and I don't do old. Which Favre's a bit of a narcissist. That was like smack. What do you mean old? Better go dye my hair. That's probably the only thing he thought was bad. Well, marriage, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Supposedly that girl looked just like his wife. So anyway, what's her name? Jen Sturger or something? She was on MSG or one of those channels at some point. Yes. Anyway, but you see what I'm talking about. And how many people you knew about Representative Mark Foley? See? Don't you think you should know there's predators in the Congress? For you to send your children off to, oh, I'll send you off to work with Mark Foley. He's a good American. You'll be safe there instead of hanging out at your aunt's house. I mean, the sickness in some people's minds. And what's worst of all, there were Republicans who came out and defended that guy. Okay? There was another guy who supposedly exposed himself to an undercover officer inside of the bathroom.
That's dumb.
I told you, man, I'm not sure what... You have to ask yourself, what kind of a personality you have to run for office where you need to lie constantly, misrepresent yourself to the public, and raise money from a bunch of slime bags all day long and not even do the people's duty? What type of personality? And I'll tell you right now, what most social psychologists tell you, somebody who's suffering from narcissistic personality disorder. Somebody who runs for president is probably a narcissist. Obama's claimed he's going to shake things up and change the country, did he?
No.
Did he change the way campaigns were run? You know what he said during the campaign? He said he wasn't going to take money from a group of donors, and I know some of you like Obama, and I'll tell you what, I sleep better with him in office than some other people, but still, he's still a politician, and you guys need to, and he's also part of a system. He can't just go up there and start knocking walls down. You go ask Kennedy what happens when you knock walls down. They come and they blow your brains out in public. Okay? But again, Obama said he wasn't going to take money from super PACs, and the other day he just said he was. Which super PACs are big corporations who put all this money and they give it to one candidate. And if the president truly wanted to change things, he'd say, I'm not taking any private money. But why won't he? Well, Mitt Romney's going to outspend him. Mitt Romney's got $100-some million of his own money. He made $30 million last year. Mitt Romney can run his own campaign. He's not going to do it. There's another thing. If you're wealthy, why don't you just use your own money and then nobody's going to influence you like Ross Perot? Why does Mitt Romney still want to take money? I mean, that drives me nuts. Did you want to add something?
Well, no.
All right, let me finish this and we'll go to the dark side here. Democrats asked for the details before going to war. President Bush accused them for unconcern for the security of their nation and called them unpatriotic. That silenced the Democratic leadership, and American troops gathered on Iraq's borders as war fever escalated. Later in his State of the Union address, President Bush announced that intelligence sources had found that Iraq had 30,000 munitions capable of delivering chemical agents, 500 tons of chemical weapons, 25,000 liters of anthrax, and 38,000 liters of botulinum toxin. Did we find any of those things? Here's another question I would say to you, President Bush, and Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld, and Vice President Cheney, and Secretary of State Colin Powell. So now you have evidence that Iraq has enough chemical and biological weapons to kill every single one of our troops within 5 minutes. And you're going to send 220,000 troops into that?
They knew that wasn't there.
That's what I'm saying. Do you really think the way that look, the United States lost 58,000 troops in Vietnam, and that caused unbelievable strife in this country. Imagine if 220,000 troops died like that. How do you think the American public would view your government now? That might lead to a revolution. I mean, are you kidding me? Because you know what the American public would say? What the hell did you do that for? You send our sons and daughters into a nuclear storm? For what? For oil? Let me ask you again. Has Iraq ever attacked or invaded the United States directly? Did the Taliban? Al-Qaeda did. Taliban helped them. There's much more of a reason to go into Afghanistan. Here's the other issue. When the Bush administration got distracted from the war in Afghanistan, what was the ramifications on the ground? Martin? To some extent, so we were less prepared. Who got away? The guilty people! at one point in 2003, we had more troops in Iraq than in Afghanistan. I mean, absurdity. And we're still fighting in Afghanistan. It now is the longest military conflict the United States has ever engaged in actively. And Iraq's the second. And then it goes Vietnam and then down the line. Okay, believe it or not. Vietnam lasted about 8 years. Total U.S. troops. Anyway, the president said the danger was such an imminent threat to the United States that he would not wait for the results from the inspectors from the United Nations and the International Atomic Energy Commission, who had already were combing Iraq. He said he had lost patience with the United Nations with 260. All right, it was wrong. There was 260,000 troops waiting on the Kuwait border of Iraq. The president made clear that he would invade Iraq at once. From that moment on, the domestic issues of the United States disappeared off the front pages and network prime news. So all his friends in the economic world that were engaged in this fraud, like Enron, he knew most of the people in Enron, all that stuff went away, all the problems in the economy. All right, keep in mind this stuff. We didn't have time to discuss this today, but what we'll do is we'll integrate it into the lecture on Tuesday, and I'll bring you your first take-home test, which won't be due until at least 2 weeks. So don't worry about it. Don't get scared or anything. I will go through this test with you line by line, especially those who've never taken class with me. So, all right, everybody, have a good weekend.
Computer, and it's right there.